Alright, we are back for another qualifying slash um, tutorial video for the B Fixed car here at Homestead Miami Speedway. So we are B Fixed. Um, we'll go into the settings I used to put down the fastest lap I had. Um, Starting with the steering ratio, I bumped it up from the default to 16 to 1. Um, just to give myself better a easier turn in. I don't have to. I don't know where it started, 12 to 1, but it just felt really, really tight, and I didn't like how little I could move the wheel, and especially the first few laps, the car was super duper loose. Um, it just didn't. I didn't have to move it very far, and I just felt like I was going to spin the car out. So we bumped it up to 16 to 1. The steering offset, the steering wheel is not completely straight. So if you do like the steering wheel to be straight, approximately a +2 degrees offset for the steering offset. That should get that wheel straight for you. And I tried just backing the brake bias down all the way to the lowest point it'll go at 50% to run this lap. I wouldn't necessarily leave it at 50% because you get on the brakes hard, the car is going to turn sideways. So if you're trying to avoid a wreck, you're probably going to move that back up. I was running I think the first one I had, I only dropped it about 5%, so I think we're sitting at about a 60% front brake bias, and I ran a lap pretty close to that. I had just backed it down to see if I could get any more out of it. So we're going to take a look at the fastest lap I ran, which is on lap 36, as it was a 33.841. It was the fastest lap, was the first lap, and as you'll notice that we're it's still daylight in this particular race. As the run went on in this practice session, it got darker and darker, and I just couldn't do anything with that time. So you may put down a better lap earlier in that session versus trying to do it later in the session when it's dark out. Don't really know why. I kind of feel like the track would cool down, but potentially maybe the air conditions just did not make it conducive to running that lap, and maybe it was just me. I don't know. I had my closest lap was within my first bout of going out there was a 33.874 to an 841. It was pretty close. Really wasn't much more to be gained. Full results of this session put a 33.6 as the top, so I'm a couple tenths off of what was running here. However, I don't know how good any of these people were inside here, so we're going to take you through this lap, showing you exactly where we were turning in, braking, getting back on the throttle from the cockpit view, so you can kind of see what that looks like and try to use that to get the best lap possible for yourself, not only in qualifying, but try to use that line potentially to lay down a good lap in the race, and hopefully that'll help you do well. Again, if this video is helpful in any way, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to be doing a tutorial about the track before I run my race in my session, and then see how the fastest lap I had stacks up to it as far as what the qualifying laps that were laid down in mine, and then post this after I've post my actual race for it. So again, like and subscribe to the video if it helps, and we're gonna get in here, take a look. Alright, come on now. Alright, I don't know if the car in front of me was affecting me. I tried to stay away from the other car as far as lap time goes. So stay high out here. Just kind of roll the upper part of the track. As we get closer to this marker, we're going to start turning down, not below the bottom seam. We're going to get down to this bottom seam here and drive it off the corner. Don't know if that actually helped. It's just kind of trying to go from the top side. Trying to make that straightaway as long as possible to get as much speed built up as it could. We're going to go down the straightaway. And we're going to be using this light, caution light, as our guide for our turn-in, as well as where we'll let off throttle. So as we get back to it, we let off at that light braking to help the car turn in at the settings I had mentioned earlier in the video. We're going to try to get her down here to the bottom. Notice we've stopped our braking at the end of this, which is the second black mark on the wall. We're going to let off our brake pressure as we've got the car down here to the bottom, just after this here a little bit, and then start picking the throttle up like a quarter, just a little bit, as we kind of keep her down here on the bottom, rolling it through the corner here, and as we continue to go through here, we're going to slowly start bringing the throttle back up as we get to the end of this line, this black mark here on the wall, which is what, probably the third one? Yeah, third black mark into the thing. We are getting off the throttle, back off the brake, back on the throttle, lightly, picking it back up to about half at the end of the third stripe. And then by the time we get right about to the edge of the sign here, we're going to try to get back on it as hard as we can and drive it up toward the wall. And head down the back straightaway. Now our next point we're going to look at as we're entering the turn is going to be the beginning part of the first sign, which is the forward sign. We are going to start our turn in, I think just after this, and let off throttle and start applying a light brake pressure to get the car turned into the corner. Oh, we were a little farther than I had thought on that one. So Geico, as we hit the red sign, just before the blue sign, as we hit this red sign, off the gas, onto the brake. Where did we start our steering wheel turn in though? I think it was at the edge of that sign. Yep, we're starting our turn in before the sign, and then we're letting off and getting on the brakes, driving it down, not on the brakes too long. As we let off our braking at the beginning of this strip of grass, that light brake pressure will go away. We'll let it roll for a little while. Try to pick that throttle up at that black mark on the wall here, which as we go in is going to be the second black mark on the wall. We've got the car down. Start getting back on the throttle, back up to about half. And we're going to, right after that stripe, at the corner of the grandstands there, as this bar makes it to this grandstand, that's when we're going to go from our approximate 3/4 throttles. We've been kind of picking it up after that black stripe. We're slowly trying to get a little bit more, keep it down here on the bottom, on that white line, and then back to full throttle and drive it off the corner. Up against the wall. And that is our best lap at a 33.841. Now, as it got later, as I continued to keep trying to run more laps, it was harder and harder to do the turn-in coming off turns 4. I just ended up spinning it. It seemed as though the later the day went on, I needed to have a lap of warm-up running closer up near the top to get the tires up to temperature before I did another lap, and I just could not get anywhere near it. As you can see, 36, I was kind of close back here in lap 89 with 33.883. We were getting closer to that time. Now, we did a couple 10-lap stints in here. Where is the 2? Right here. So we have our 54 to 64 and our 66 to 76. Went out. First stint I was doing a top, just like the qualifying lap, top to the bottom, with it backed the corners up just a little bit, and made sure I let plenty of time to let it roll in the corners, and did 10 laps of that. We had approximately, I had 95% wear in my right front, at like 233 degrees temperature on my right front after those laps. 34.2 is about the best I did there. No wall hits. It was mostly just not getting in there quite the same way, making sure I get that turn in early enough, get down there and make sure I let it roll enough to get around the inside of the track and not pick that throttle back up too early to come off the corner. Second run was around the high line, so we're trying to stay up here above this top seam as we went around the track. I suppose we can. We were just trying to stay near the top up here as we went around. Those laps tended to be a little bit quicker and pretty consistent for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laps until I bumped the wall, keeping them somewhere around there. And then the fastest lap of a 34.3 while running up near the top. Just a matter of trying to get used to that upper line and running that up there. That resulted in, after those 10 laps, 92% wear on the right front, and they were noticeably warmer on the right side tires, especially the right rear was closer to being worn to the front tire than it was with the 95. I think the first 10 lap run on the low line, it was 95 and 97, front and right rear. It was like 92, 94. So they were closer. It was, I feel like it was burning the right rear up a little bit because you're getting back on that throttle early, and then managed to come off the corner relatively well for those 10 laps. But it would seem that the cars, and I don't know if this was something that I gleaned from watching the other videos of other people, but I believe with this very short spoiler, we are dealing with potentially the higher horsepower, lower downforce package on these cars, so they're going to be loose. You cannot get back on the throttle too early. You cannot go into the corner and turn the wheel too quickly and get back on the throttle. You will just break traction on the back end and it's going to go around. I didn't really have much problems on the getting in the turn. Most of the problems that you'll probably come on is upon exit of these of the turns, where you're gonna get up there and you're trying to keep it off the wall, either in the high line or come off the bottom of the low line, or maybe somewhere in the middle, and just getting back to the throttle too early, and the car wanting to rotate around and lose control of the car. So top was basically getting down to the bottom, running the low line, and about those signs and that caution light were let off points and turning points. Get the car down to the bottom and make sure that it stayed down there through the corner until we come off. Be careful on the qualifying lap. Do some practice attempts to see how that car is going to feel when you push it that hard, so you're not causing additional incident points, though less under caution or under the race practice session and the race qualifying still will hurt you in those sessions. So I feel like if I ran the low line and made sure I backed off, you're really going to save a bunch of tire. Maybe these I didn't do a run where I just abused them to kind of see how quickly they'd fall off. That's always something that you could potentially try, just to see how bad the tire is going to get worn, so you can recognize somebody being in that exact same boat and how the car won't want to turn when you get inside here. Running that high line, you'll be likely to bump the wall. If you give it too much throttle, don't turn in early enough, you'll bump the wall somewhere on the caution light as you're going through the turns. Try to make sure you let off enough time as the run goes on. It's a little less forgiving, and when you let off, you're still gonna, even though you're running that high line, you're still gonna have to let off when you're going into that turn. Otherwise, that's not the. This is the high line run, is it not? You still have to let off as you're going through the turns, because if you pick the throttle back up too early, letting off, even let brake pressure to keep the thing inside there. As the run went on, it seemed as though I was more able to not hit the brakes and slow the car down as I try to keep myself from actually bumping the wall and getting back on the throttle. But there's plenty of racing surface, low, medium, and high. I don't think this is going to be too bad. In fact, if there's any track that may allow some safety rating gain, it may be here. A track with more wide sweeping corners to allow you to run some different lines and try to get by people. I think that's about all I got when it comes to running around here. I'm gonna have to do a race and see how well the lap time holds up to the qualifying efforts of those in those race sessions with me. But hopefully, some part of this you can take and find whether it be a high line or a low line or a mid line in between either of those ones there, where you can find that speed. And always at the beginning of the race, just make sure you take your time. Don't race harder than the guys that are around you for a while, especially if they're racing side by side. Just let them race, keep some distance. Don't put yourself in a spot where you're getting wrecked or get any incident points from somebody else doing something stupid. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Notice those drivers when they are driving in a not so safe manner and give them some space. Because if you don't give them space, they're likely going to wreck you instead of wrecking the other guy. Hope this helps. I'll have to see when I can do the race here in the B Fixed.